This girl claimed to be Whitney Houston in a past life, and it's one of the most chilling reincarnation cases in history. The year was 2018. In a modest, sun-drenched home nestled amidst the vibrant, chaotic rhythm of New Orleans lived the Dubois family. The air in their quaint shotgun house on Esplanade Avenue always hummed with a unique symphony. The distant wail of a jazz trumpet, the sweet scent of beignets wafting from a nearby cafe, and the low murmur of Mrs. Dubois humming spirituals as she went about her day. It was a city alive with stories, both celebrated and whispered, where the veil between worlds often felt impossibly thin. For the Dubois, life was a tapestry, woven with devotion and hard work. Mr. Dubois, a gentle giant with calloused hands, spent his days repairing instruments in a small shop in the French Quarter. Mrs. Dubois, with her kind eyes and unwavering faith, managed a local bookstore. Their daughter, little Serafina, was the bright star in their firmament. Serafina was, to all outward appearances, a perfectly normal 5-year-old. Her laughter was infectious, a cascade of pure joy that echoed through the narrow halls of their home. Her pigtails bounced as she chased fireflies in the humid twilight, and her crayon drawings, though abstract, were filled with a childlike wonder. Yet even then, subtle anomalies began to surface, like faint ripples on an otherwise calm pond. She possessed an unusual intensity in her gaze, a depth that seemed to belong to someone far older. Sometimes, while playing with her dolls, she would hum melodies that her parents had never heard, intricate and soulful, far beyond the scope of any children's song. Her fingers, small and pudgy, would often mimic the precise, elegant gestures of a conductor, an unconscious movement that struck her mother as oddly sophisticated. The first truly unusual things Serafina said were fragmented, almost dreamlike. One sweltering afternoon, as her mother attempted to teach her a simple nursery rhyme, Serafina paused, her brow furrowed. "Mama," she asked, her voice surprisingly clear for a child her age, "did you ever sing 'I Will Always Love You' to a stadium of people?" Mrs. Dubois chuckled, attributing it to an overactive imagination. "No, sweet pea, Mama only sings for you and your daddy." Serafina merely nodded, a distant look in her eyes as if recalling a forgotten dream. Then came the details. One evening, watching a documentary about music icons, a vintage clip of the Grammy Awards flashed across the screen. Serafina, who usually paid little attention to such things, suddenly pointed a tiny finger at the television. "She wore a dress just like that one when I won my first big award," she declared, her voice devoid of childish exaggeration. Her parents exchanged a bewildered glance. The woman on the screen was a young Whitney Houston. Later, Serafina would complain about the bright lights hurting my eyes after a particularly intense flash from her father's camera, or remark with startling authority that the sound engineer really messed up that bass line when a particularly muddy song played on the radio. These were not the musings of a 5-year-old, they were the observations of a seasoned professional. The Dubois felt a cold tendril of unease begin to coil in their hearts. The revelation arrived with an almost theatrical intensity. It was Serafina's 6th birthday. The house was filled with the cheerful din of children's voices and the sweet aroma of her favorite strawberry cake. As her parents gathered around, ready to sing "Happy Birthday," Serafina suddenly pushed her plate away. Her eyes, usually sparkling with childlike mischief, were now wide and strangely haunted. "I'm not Serafina," she announced, her voice trembling slightly. I'm Whitney." A stunned silence descended upon the room. The other children, sensing the shift in atmosphere, fell quiet. Mrs. Dubois knelt, her heart pounding. "What are you talking about, sweet pea?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Serafina looked directly into her mother's eyes. "I was a singer, Mama. A very famous singer. My name was Whitney Houston." She then began to recount, in vivid, almost photographic detail, fragments of a life that was undeniably Whitney's. She spoke of her childhood in Newark, New Jersey, of her mother Cissy Houston's powerful voice, of recording studios, sold-out concerts, and the overwhelming pressure of fame. She even described specific outfits, stage setups, and the precise sensation of stepping out onto a colossal stage, a wave of adoring fans stretching into the darkness. Her parents, though devout, were torn between fear and a burgeoning sense of awe. How could their daughter, who had never been exposed to the intricate biography of Whitney Houston, know such things? Serafina described the texture of a specific velvet gown worn at an awards show, the design of a particular microphone, and even the emotional toll of constant public scrutiny. She spoke of her triumphs and her struggles, all with an inexplicable knowingness that chilled them to the bone. "My bodyguard Kevin," she once mused. "He was always there, a steady presence." Kevin Costner, her co-star and friend in The Bodyguard, was not a name a 6-year-old from New Orleans would casually know or recall with such affection. The Dubois, desperate for answers, initially kept it a secret. But as Serafina's memories grew more insistent, more detailed, they knew they couldn't ignore it. They reached out, cautiously at first, to their pastor, Father Michael, a kind and open-minded man. He listened, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to a profound sense of wonder. Father Michael, in turn, introduced them to Dr. Aris Thorne, a renowned psychologist specializing in childhood developmental anomalies, and a keen amateur historian of popular culture. Soon, the humble home in New Orleans became a quiet hub of investigation. Dr. Thorne, a man of science, approached the case with a blend of professional detachment and burgeoning curiosity. He designed a series of carefully crafted tests. He would show Serafina photographs of various female singers from different eras, asking her to identify them. Serafina, without hesitation, correctly identified Whitney Houston in multiple images, often providing specific details about the context of the photo. She once pointed to a picture of Houston performing and remarked, "That was the night I lost my voice for a minute, but I pushed through." A quick search online confirmed a widely reported incident where Houston had a vocal scare during a concert. They played snippets of various pop songs, asking Serafina to identify the artist. While she sometimes stumbled on contemporary hits, her recognition of Whitney Houston's songs was immediate and visceral. She would sway to the rhythm, her small hands moving as if conducting, and occasionally even hum along with perfect pitch and an uncanny vocal inflection. One afternoon, Dr. Thorne played a lesser-known demo track of Whitney Houston's, a song never officially released to the public. Serafina's eyes widened. "Oh, that one," she said, a small smile playing on her lips. "I wrote that in my hotel room in London, after a fight." Dr. Thorne was speechless. The existence of that particular demo, let alone the circumstances of its creation, was not public knowledge. If this shocks you so far, subscribe and tell us in the comments what you think about reincarnation. The true climax, the moment that shattered all remaining doubt for those involved, came during a visit to Newark, New Jersey, the city of Whitney Houston's birth. Dr. Thorne, Father Michael, and the Dubois family had made the pilgrimage, a desperate hope mingled with a fear of disappointment. They had shown Serafina a map of Newark, asking if she recognized any places. Her small finger traced a path to a specific, unassuming house in a residential neighborhood. "That was my first home," she declared, her voice hushed. "My grandmother lived there." A discreet inquiry confirmed that the address had indeed been the Houston family residence during Whitney's early childhood. But the most astonishing revelation came later that day. They visited a local church, a historic building that Whitney Houston had attended in her youth. As they stood in the sanctuary, Serafina suddenly walked towards a specific stained glass window, her gaze fixed on a small, almost imperceptible crack in the leaded glass. "Papa," she whispered, tugging on her father's hand, "do you remember when I was little and I threw my shoe at the window during Sunday service? Mama was so mad it made that crack." The Dubois and the others exchanged a gasp. Such an anecdote, a private childhood transgression, could not possibly be known. An elderly deacon, overhearing the conversation, approached them, his eyes wide with recognition. "Why, I remember that day like it was yesterday," he exclaimed, a chuckle escaping his lips. "Sissy was furious, but Whitney was just a mischievous little thing. We never did fix that crack, though." The aftermath of Serafina Dubois' case sent ripples through the scientific and spiritual communities. News of the Whitney Houston reincarnation spread like wildfire, fueled by both fervent belief and cynical skepticism. Scientists grappled with the implications, their empirical framework struggling to contain such an anomaly. Psychologists debated repressed memories, genetic predispositions, and the power of suggestion, yet none could adequately explain the sheer volume of precise, unlearnable information Serafina possessed. Religious leaders offered interpretations ranging from divine intervention to the transmigration of souls, while historians painstakingly verified every detail Serafina provided, often finding uncanny accuracy. The Dubois family, once ordinary, found themselves thrust into an extraordinary spotlight. They shielded Serafina from the most intense scrutiny, allowing her to grow up as normally as possible, even as the memories of Whitney Houston slowly began to recede, becoming fainter, more dreamlike, much like a fading melody. Serafina, now a teenager, still possesses an undeniable musical talent, a voice that holds a haunting echo of the late superstar. She sings, not for fame, but for the sheer joy of it, a quiet homage to a life she can barely remember but that undeniably shaped her. The case of Serafina Dubois challenges our most fundamental understandings of life, death, and the very essence of identity. It forces us to confront the possibility that consciousness might transcend the physical body, that our journeys may be far longer, far more intricate than we dare to imagine. Was Serafina truly the reincarnation of Whitney Houston, a soul reborn, carrying fragments of a legendary life? Or was it something else, a mystery that science has yet to unravel, a whisper from beyond the veil? What do you think? Could this child truly be the reincarnation of Whitney Houston? Comment below and subscribe for more chilling cases.